What is a word? It seems something very simple and very naive to ask somebody what is a word. But it's very technical to define what a word is. So, what is a word? A single word can have multiple uses and interpretation. So, a lot of time you get confused when you look at a word and you see that it does not give a very clear meaning because it has multiple meanings or interpretation. Let's look at a few examples. Miner refused to work after death. Is it an act or fact of dying? Eye drops off shelf. Eye drops off shelf or eye drops off shelf. Local high school dropouts cut in half. So if you look at these, some of the headings from newspapers, you'll find that it is difficult to reach the exact meaning in the first instance because it can go for multiple meanings. So this is the case with the word because words are used in different categories. For example, words like noun, verb, adjective, and adverb refer to what linguists call lexical categories. These are lexical categories because they bear meanings. They are contrary to grammatical categories. So they are labels that tell us how a word is generally used in a sentence. Obviously, we have the places of categories in a sentence. Subject is the place of a noun. Verb is the place of a verb. Object is the place of a noun. So every component of the words has a certain category, the use of certain category, right? So it helps us in knowing the exact meaning of the word. Otherwise, we'll get confused. A noun can be the subject of a sentence, but not as a verb. For a verb to be the sentence of to be the verb of a sentence, it has to be a verb. Right? Because verb has certain characteristics, it takes certain affixes and does not take other affixes. In many cases, identical sounding or identical looking words can belong to multiple categories, and that is what is going on in some of these sentences, the sentences that we just mentioned. For example, let's take the word water. I need water. Right? I need what? Water. So here water is used as a noun because it is used in the place of a noun. So it is a noun. The gardener waters the plant. Here the word water is used as a verb because it is used in the place of a verb. So the word water is identical looking or identical sounding word, and it has it can be used as verb as well as noun, but it has its certain places as noun and as verb. Various ways to define a word, but no definition is entirely satisfactory. I mean, the easiest definition to describe a word is that words have spaces before and after. Right, and on the basis of it, any child who knows English can easily distinguish or tell you that this is a word and this is not a word. But for morphologists and for linguists, this definition is not enough. They look at words from different angles, from different subdisciplines of linguistics. For example, they see that how we syntactically describe or define words. Because if we say syntactically, it means that we may have a different theory or different definition phonologically. For example, if you look at this verb, Harry coughs every time he steps outside. It is a correct English sentence in which we know that words are placed combined in a certain order. We cannot change certain order, or we have limited options to change this order. But even if you look at the word cuffs, it is a combination of cuff and a verb and in a morpheme sir, right? So you can see there's verb, cough, and sir. We cannot change the order of this because syntactically we have to believe that syntax of a sentence follows a certain order. We cannot put s before cough and make the correct sentence. So it means that if syntax studies the smallest unit of the sentence, so it means that s is a word because the smallest unit of syntax is a word, right? What is syntax? If we think of syntax as component of the human grammar that governs the ordering of items, then s should be a word. As I just said, that if it is the system of ordering words, then s is a word syntactically. So s is a word, but generally we know that s is combined with cuff and it cannot be separated from cuff, and it is like a one word. Another characteristic, the smallest unit of language that can stand alone. We can have another definition for word. When are you going to the store? Tomorrow. Tomorrow is a single word, but it gives a meaning, right? So it is a word. But we cannot use affixes. They are units which are incapable of standing alone. You cannot bring some affixes to stand them alone as words in a sentence. Though when we are dealing with the morphology, we do separate the individual segments of a word, but we know that there are free morphemes and there are bound morphemes, and bound morphemes do not stand alone. But we again find some problem. For example, whose book is this? My. The answer is my. So if somebody say my is a word, but as you can say that it is incorrect. We cannot use my as a word. This is my book. This is my book. So we say that this sentence has 4 words. But if word can stand alone, as in the first case tomorrow, then why can't my stand alone? We know that there should have been mine. My cannot stand alone. So we do not find the complete answer of what is a word from syntax. In the musical Camelot, Queen Guinevere sings the following lines: it's May, the month of yes, you may, the time for every frivolous whim, proper or im, when all the world is brimming with fun, wholesome or un. So if you look at this, she has rhymed im with whim and un with fun. Whereas we know that im and un are no word, they cannot stand alone. But if we look at syntax, we'll have to believe that they are words. Defining words phonologically. So this is another other thing with which we can try to define words. Words tend to be important units phonologically as well as syntactically. The word is typically the domain of stress assignment. Especially in English, we know that stress is very important. And in a sentence, when we look at the sentence stress, we know that there are certain units. For example, he's in the room. So we know that in the room will have one stress. Because in English language and in many other language, stress plays a very important role, and it is stress is a typical rule of morphology, phonology in many languages. So, for example, let's take the modern example of modern Greek O anthropos, it is the person, right? So you can see the stress is on the one of the third last syllable of the word. But when we add in modern Greek the genitive case for our, which is mass in English, O anthropos, the stress changes. It means that these two have one stress. So in the first cases, A, there was one word which had one stress, main stress, primary stress. In this example B, the stress, with the addition of a word, the stress is changed, not only changed, but now the main stress is changed to the last syllable, and to the first syllable a secondary stress is given. So this happens with the grammatical words, right? We have a lot of words, grammatical words, in which stress changes in the same case. But despite all this fact, we all know that even an illiterate person, not to speak of literate person, can have a clear understanding about what is a word. The term grammatical word and morphosyntactic word is virtually synonymous with the word, but is generally used to refer specifically to different forms of a single word that occur depending on the syntactic context. For example, rabbit is and rabbits. So they are two tokens of the same words. So similarly, the word and, the word the word into, the word lovely, they do not have other form, but they are words. So we can, if we look at the word, what is word syntactically and phonologically, we see different phenomena. We see that they are different. In syntax, it can be defined, but there are certain questions. In phonology, it can be defined, but there are certain questions. So up till now, it remains difficult to define what actually word. So we rely more on our intuition that a certain sound, combination of sound before and after. Sometimes it's only one sound before and after there is space, is a word.